There are times that we might prefer either a slideshow or a video rather than a single image. If we want to swap this web part out, easy enough to do, I can simply delete it. It's gone. And in its place, let's insert a different web part, a picture library slideshow web part, which I would like to put right here at the top, in the same place I had an image. Start by editing this web part to select a library to display. With this web part selected, let's go look at its properties, because that's where we will specify libraries. First, it says, how long should the picture be there before it switches? Remember that you don't want to have images just flipping by, because that will be annoying very soon. So 15 seconds feels about right. Choose a picture library. This cannot be a document library with pictures in it. It actually has to be a picture library. So I created one called BHPix. It's the picture library that I chose the image from in the last movie. And then I have 3 different views that I can use. I have one called All Pictures, one called Thumbnails, and one called Slides. I'm simply going to choose Slides this go-round. And then we have 2 choices about how the images will be displayed. One is sequential order, the second is random order. If you have a lot of images, random order may well work. If you only have a few, so let's say you have 3 images, well, you might see the same image 6 times in a row. People tend to think, well, what are the odds of that? Well, the odds are pretty good because there's only 3 of them to begin with. Random order is truly random. Each time, some image will be provided. We have 5 images, so we're going to move through them sequentially. Then the question is, how do we want it displayed? Each of these images has a title, and some of them might even have descriptions, but the question is, do I want to display those? So that you can see what this looks like, we're going to display a title and description below the image. Remember that the toolbar will provide us with tools like these. We don't need them. And then what's the title of this? Well, it always provides the title of the web part. We could use a title if we're going to show the title. If we're not, I'm simply going to leave it and change my Chrome type to none, as I did for the image we had in the image viewer web part. Let's apply this. There's our first image. That's going to work. Let's now save this. That's a fairly small image, and in about 15 seconds after it was initially there, we should see another one. Businessman and woman using laptop at restaurant table. I really don't want to be displaying that particular description. It's kind of boring, right? If it was the name of our restaurant at our hotel or who these people were, Golden Gate Bridge is easily viewable from our atrium, that sort of thing. So let's go back in and edit. Select our web part and edit it to open its properties. One of 2 ways we can get to that. And let's actually have no title or description. If we wanted to take the time to clean up the titles and descriptions, it's not a bad thing, but let's just leave it. And there's really nothing else that we need to set here unless we want to make sure that folks can't minimize this web part, can't edit it in personal view. And I'm going to shorten this up maybe to 12 seconds. Now, these views are real library views. If I go to this picture library, these are the 3 views. Imagine that I have 50 or 60 images, and it's a mix. Some of them are pictures in the hotel, some of them are pictures outside the hotel, as these are. What I might choose to do is have a category that tells me where the images are. Are they guest room images? Are they hotel and amenity images? Are they local area images? And if I do that, I can create a filtered view that says external images or guest room images. And because I can create a filtered view, I can use a filtered view here to determine which images are going to be displayed in this particular web part. Let's apply this. Say OK to close it out. Let's save again. It might be that the image size that we would like would be slightly larger. These are all about 300 by 200. We might specify we'd like something more like 500 rather than 300 wide. Or we could add text here if we wished by displaying the description and title, and that took up some space and looked pretty good. Notice that they're changing on what seems to be a relatively frequent basis. We're not getting bored, but I begin to see the wisdom of 15 seconds or 20 seconds. It's grabbing my attention fairly frequently, and we can go back and edit this again if we wish to modify it. There are some nifty things about this web part. Even if I'm showing a relatively small image, if the user wants to see a larger image, they can very easily. As a matter of fact, if we modify this part again, and change the property so that the view that we're using isn't slides but is thumbnails, for example, then I can have a small representation of a very, very large image. Notice that the thumbnail is slightly smaller than the image itself. As with the image viewer, it's nice if all of the pictures have the same orientation, portrait or landscape, and are about the same size because A, it provides a smoother slideshow experience, but B, if some of these are in portrait mode, it will want to move the other web parts in this zone down as it switches to portrait and back. Two different ways to use media and content web parts to display static images or a dynamic slideshow in our site.